brighter than the moon, brighter than the star. I love you just the way you are, and you are my African queen, the girl of my dreams. You take me where I never been. You make my heart go ting-a-ling-a-ling. Oh, you are my African queen, brighter than the girl of my dreams. And you remind me of a thing, and that is the African beauty. Yeah, yeah. Ooh, you're my African queen. Oh, Lord, ooh, Lord. Out of a million, you stand as one, they are standing one. I look into your eyes, girl, what I see is paradise. Hey, you captivated my soul. Now every day I want you more. I cannot deny this feeling I'm feeling inside. Hey, no one cannot take your place. You cannot take your space. This fact I cannot erase. And no, you are the one that makes me smile. Make me float like a boat upon the Nile. Girl, you are my African queen.
Good evening. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to this special edition of Converse with a Coach. My name is Mireille Karera, and I am your host for today. And today is a very special show for a number of reasons. It is very special because today we have a very bright young man on the show, and that's the first time we have a young man, a student, a millennial on the show. So that by itself is quite special. But what makes it even more special is that our guest for today is none other than Adeleke Karera. So yes, you heard the name right. His name is Karera, just like whom? Just like myself, your hosts. We will share with you in a moment why and how he has been invited to this show and why we share the same name, in case you wonder. Now, we will welcome him in a moment. Before we do, let me welcome all of you joining us from a number of places in this world, starting with home in Rwanda, Kigali, in Africa. Also today, we are specially welcoming guests following us from Switzerland. Switzerland, we greet you, we salute you on this show for the first time, and every one of you joining us from all around the world. We appreciate your feedback. We certainly receive the comments that you share with us every Sunday. And we understand that this show has been really making impact in some of your lives. Now, if you're tuning in for the first time, the two things I would like to share with you. Number one, please subscribe to the button right there on YouTube so you can get to hear more. So it's right there on the right side of the screen. Click subscribe so that you can get to hear more about what we do. So Converse with the Coach is a show that was created in August so that all of you watching us can start the week. We know tomorrow is the start of a new week, so that you can start the week highly lifted as we showcase, as we invite guests that are either coaches. So you'll be conversing with coaches. I am a coach, and I invite some of my guests to come and talk about different topics around life issues, topics around mental health, business, leadership, and really anything that has to do with life and human being with other humans. So you definitely want to subscribe and get to follow all of those. And the other reason is really to prepare you for the upcoming week so that you can start the week on a high note and highly motivated for you to be the world changer that we know you were born to be. So there you go. You know what to do. Make sure that you don't miss out on the next episodes. And also, I would like to invite you for you to also follow other topics that we covered in the past. We covered topics such as, how to take your power back if you feel that things are not going your way right now, make sure that you follow the topic we covered 2 weeks ago. And even, before that, issues around divorce or how to bounce back from COVID if you are in hospitality, or, how to make the right decision and impact the world through your choices. So all of those amazing topics and shows have been there for you to have access to at any time. Now, second thing, which I wanted to share, is that this show is very interactive. So you will see me scrolling through my phone and checking that, if we have any questions, comments, etc. So I'm asking you to share your comments, ask questions to my guest or I on anything that you feel is relevant for you or that we need to cover during this show. So it's quite interactive. As the show is called, it is a conversation. So let's converse with each other, and especially my guests, none other than Adeleke Karera. Now, Adeleke, we call you Leke. Welcome to this show.
Thank you so much for having me. How are you doing?
I'm very well. Greetings to you in Switzerland.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so Leke is joining us from Switzerland, Winterthur, which is a town near Zurich. And we invited him today to talk about how millennials or the new generation is truly finding its voice or their voice on social media during these critical times during and post-COVID. And Leke will talk a little bit more about the work he does, the podcast he started. But before we get to that stage, there is a tradition that I have. And that tradition is for guests to share how we met. Now, for this specific show, it's going to be quite interesting for you to share, my guest, how we met. Could you share with the audience how we met?
Yeah, so this one's pretty funny. So I'm very fortunate to be able to call you my aunt. And I think a memory that's very vivid and that I won't ever forget has to be dating back to 2010. So I was around 11 at the time, and growing up, I used to always be the biggest football fan. I was born in Germany, and actually for my birthday, you surprised me and said that you had tickets for the World Cup in South Africa to go watch a game. And I remember growing up, I was just so excited. And then we were in Cape Town, and funny enough, we got to watch Germany play against Argentina. And that was just the highlight of my trip, and I remember going back home to Switzerland after that and just boasting to all my friends about that memory.
That's right. Yes. I remember that it was in 2010 and it was your 11th birthday, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That's right. My goodness, how time has flown.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how old are you now, if I may ask?
And now I'm 21.
You're 21 now. Wonderful.
Yeah.
So for those who don't know you, can you tell us a little bit more about you? I guess what your work is at your age, and if you're studying, what you are studying, so our guests get to know you a little bit better.
Yeah, so I'm 21. I'm a third year student right now. I study at a liberal arts university in the United States in New York called St. Lawrence University. I'm currently doing a double major, so I'm doing business as well as government, and played on the basketball team there for 2 years. And currently I'm doing remote online classes here in Switzerland and playing for a local basketball club here as well called the Gold Coast Wallabies.
Wow. For you to play basketball, you must be very tall, right?
Yeah.
Would I be an embarrassing aunt to ask you how tall you are?
No, I think at this point it's pretty natural. I get it all the time. But yeah, so in centimeters, I'm 2 meters 08. Or I think in feet, that's like 6'10", somewhere around that.
So you're 2 meters 6. Wow. 06.
06, yeah, or 08, I think, last time I checked.
Wow. So to put that into context, I am meters, 70, 74, 74. Wow, really tall. Right. Thank you so much. Now, um, the reason why I asked you to join this podcast is something that I must say as a host, talk show host, I'm really proud to see you having started something. A few weeks ago, I was just scrolling through my Instagram where we are connected, and I saw, like a new podcast called No Cap, and I thought, oh, this is quite interesting. So I saw that you and your friend Scott, you started a podcast, and I really decided to understand what you're doing, and you know what really drove you to do that. So before we get into the actual podcast, can you tell the audience what people your age or students right now are busy doing during downtimes where they're not physically able to be at university. For example, you are studying in the US, but currently you're in Switzerland. So could you tell us a little bit more, maybe from the moment the lockdown started up until now, and then we'll get to the podcast later.
Yeah, so everything happened very quickly. So I remember back in March, we were at my university, we were supposed to have spring break. We had about a week left, and people started talking about COVID, but nobody really knew the severity of it yet at that point. And I guess our school told us that we were going to have an extra week of spring break. So I just remember everyone being really excited about it, not thinking much about it. And then as time went on, because our spring break is usually only 1 week, but during those 2 weeks, I was stayed on campus because I wasn't really sure if I could go anywhere else because our school has like strict rules about that. And as an international student, I was kind of waiting on if they would decide if we were going to continue the school year in person or if they would switch remotely. And then once we kind of learned more about COVID and its severity, that our school announced that it was going to end up being fully online for the rest of last year. So I was able to finally get a flight back home to Switzerland and took the last few months remotely online. And now as well, our school has kind of been in a kind of a whirlwind. So what they decided to do is they added 3 semesters. So they added a summer one as well for this year. And they allow us as students to pick 2 of those semesters where you can choose one as being online and the other one in person. And yeah, still right now doing remote classes from here and just kind of trying to find a balance on what exactly I'm able to do and just figure out how to focus on my studies while not being present in class.
Yeah. And is it, do you have any, I guess it's a bit difficult for us to imagine what it might be for you. And with the time difference, there's a bit of a time difference between
Yeah.
Switzerland and US. Do you have any sort of a one-on-one connection with your teachers, or is it all pre-recorded classes, or how does that
Mhm.
work?
Yeah, I have to give a big shout out to our teachers because they're really doing their best right now with the circumstances that they're facing. They're trying their hardest. I know, for example, some of my teachers are very lenient when it comes now to different situations because our school has students from all over the world. So what they do is they opt to sometimes pre-record some lectures. So if you're not able to be present, you at least are able to watch those and then do the assignments. But then some others are still on Zoom. So it kind of was also on me when I chose my schedule to pick classes that kind of fit more into a corresponding time schedule where I won't have to be up until like 2 a.m. to take a certain class.
Hmm, that's really good. So that means that you and your colleagues, students, have quite a lot of time on your hand. And I know that in Europe, unfortunately, the situation with COVID is not as contained as it is, for example, in Rwanda.
Yeah.
So that means there's less of time for you to play basketball outdoors, or go and visit your fellow students. So what do you do with that time?
Yeah, so that's true. Yeah, especially here in Switzerland now with COVID, things have gotten a bit worse again. So at first I was actually playing with the local club. So I had that. We used to have practices every day pretty much, then games on the weekend. But because of COVID, our season also got put to a halt about a month ago. So now I've just been using that time. I found this, we started our podcast now, which has been really rewarding to do, but also just spending quality time here with my friends, with my family, especially with my younger brother, since we were both here together, kind of in the same situation because he also had online classes. So it's been cool to get some quality time that I otherwise at this age most probably wouldn't have been able to spend because I'd be in university right now on
Mm-hmm.
campus. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I see. Thank you for giving, putting all of that into perspective for us. Now, the main focus of this show is to talk about, how the youth is utilizing their time through social media. Before we get into your podcast, I took some time to do a little bit of digging and go to your TikTok page. Now, I'm
Yeah.
one thing. You are very popular, my young friend. I One of the videos that you put up there, you have over almost 1 million views, like 832,000 views. How on earth do you get to do that? I can't. What's the
I
trick?
honestly I have no clue how that happened. TikTok, I just downloaded over quarantine. I was bored and just heard about the app. And what I really liked about it is that, it's kind of more towards comedy and stuff like that. You can create your own sketches, so it lets the user do whatever they want. And yeah, I just started doing some funny videos, I guess, and just one day woke up seeing that it had over 100,000 views. And I was just wondering to myself, like, why are people watching this? I just made this video in like 10 minutes in my bedroom.
That's right.
Yeah,
Yes. And it went from 100,000 to 800,000 plus.
yeah.
All of that in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Right. And people like us, you might sound like I have a healthy sense of jealousy, but it's not. It is it is admiration. So when I looked at your TikTok account, and I'm fairly new to TikTok, I understand that it is a platform that is becoming more and more popular for the younger population. So people your age or even below, the teenagers of this age. And I understand that it is a platform that started with the kind of content that you've been able to produce at no cost, where people get to share clips. But nowadays it is changing, going from an entertaining platform to a platform that creates positive messages, tutorials. I've seen teachers, universities, corporates, news agencies that are now present on TikTok. Now, it is in that spirit that I went in there, not snooping on my nephew, but I said 800,000. And Lord, we spent a lot of money on our videos, which are nicely manicured and edited, but it takes a teenager to do 10 minutes video for it to go viral. So it intrigued me as a businesswoman, and it intrigued me and someone who really studies human behaviors and psychology and all of that to think, what are the teenagers doing well? What can we learn from your generation? And the word that I use today is really for me to be reverse mentored by you when it comes to social media and TikTok. So I'm going to ask you to share with us, some of us who might be a little bit older, what you guys are doing so well at zero to no costs that is creating such a huge impact. So over to you.
Yeah. So, I mean, especially I think for my generation over quarantine, we were able to use social media in different ways to, I guess, kind of find our own voice. So, something I found really intriguing was that there's always kind of been a stigma, I guess, for example, with younger adults or the youth, that they might be disengaged with more topics such as politics because of our use with social media. But something that I saw that happened and that stood out during the pandemic is that when people were forced to self-isolate, they kind of found new means to use social media in more positive ways to create an impact. So, for example, what I saw with my friends is that they were able to use social media to come together to fight and speak out against things such as racial injustices or police brutality that were happening in the United States. And not only did they use social media to promote, for example, protests and to come together, but they also use it as a means to share resources with one another and to educate themselves and their peers, which was really, really amazing to watch.
Yeah, and it's amazing because there is power in numbers. Clearly, more than half of the world is below 30, is probably below even 20. So I can understand how we can create a shift. And as you were speaking, I was thinking about the Arab Spring. So the Arab Spring in the Middle East and North Africa, through social media, through Facebook and Twitter, so many governments were reshuffled and some overthrown because of young people utilizing the power of volume to, create that social change and justice. So I can understand with, George Floyd's, for example, which was an incident that took place during quarantine. That might have been what your generation used to create change. And you said something interesting in passing. The youth not being very much interested in politics. Did I hear that right?
Yeah. So, yeah, I guess there a lot of times might be a stigma
Mm.
surrounded with youth that they're disengaged or not really interested when it comes to things such as politics. But even now, this year especially, my feed is more biased because I study in the US. So a lot more what I see is like my friends from America and what they post. But something that was truly amazing as well was how they used social media this year to encourage their peers to go out and vote. Because for a lot of my friends, these elections were the first time that they were allowed to go and vote.
Yes.
So that was really awesome to see how they encouraged their peers where to vote. So they were sending out information on voter registration, what the procedure is, and then also sending out where they can vote, like where the locations are to do that.
Mm. That's true. Actually, you bring up an interesting dynamic that some of your friends might be voting for the first time because they may be 19, 20, or 21, which means that 4 years ago they were below, the age for voting. You've used the word stigma a few times.
Yeah.
What do you mean by stigma in this context?
So stigma, I guess, for me in this context means that for my generation, we might be perceived as passive and not really active. So as to say that what we do a lot of times, maybe also because of social media in part and like the use of our phone, we're seen as lazy and not really engaged with what is happening around us, which can be the case because social media, as much as it is a blessing, can also be a curse. But I think it's really up to us as the youth to use social media to then replicate what we use in social media to use into real life to help create positive change.
Yeah, absolutely. No, thank you for clarifying, what you meant by stigma.
Yeah.
And you're absolutely right. So I see there's more people joining. So I'm inviting all of you watching us live to ask a question or comment, or even ask our guest today if there's anything specific that you want to know about the youth, or something that has been intriguing you. Because I know that most of um, our audience at Cora, which is the company that I represent, we have, more mature audience following us. So I can understand that today you may be wondering, what are your teenage sons and daughters doing? What, looking at the phone or being glued on the phone? So please ask. This is your chance to ask questions or comments or share your experience with us today. There is something that you also say there, Leke, about, where people might think that teenagers being on the phone, or, the youth being on the phone, they may be lazy. It reminds me of a research that I saw about the different generations, where for example, your parents and our generation, when we see you on the phone, we may be thinking that you're using it for entertainment purpose. But your generation is actually using this as a tool for, video tutorial, which is
Mm.
something I'm realizing more and more of. So, what would you say to parents out there that have that, I guess, stereotype that you just mentioned? What would you like them to know about your generation and the world you live in?
I think social media can be a beautiful thing because you're able to harness your own creativity and then share it with the world around you. So as you were saying, you could, if you're wondering how to, for example, cook a certain meal and you're not quite sure how to do it, there's a tutorial right away on YouTube on how to do such a thing. And I think, yeah, just with our generation, especially, I just see it constantly. It's just so many new creative ideas that they're bringing out and just sharing it with the world.
Yeah, that's true. And it took me some time. I must confess that I also was one of them, where I would see some of our young colleagues at Cora, which is the company I lead. I would see them look down on their phone, but in fact, they were watching tutorial on how to do
Mm.
this and that. And I caught on with that because a little bit of a year ago, I had to switch my laptop from a PC to a Mac. And oh Lord, it was just like the world upside down. But I
Mm.
used the video tutorial on, what's the difference between Command and Control V or something like that. So
Yeah.
that was pretty quick to live in your world of, video tutorial. And it reminds me of what my friends fondly call YouTube and Google in Nigeria. So they call Google Uncle Google, and YouTube they call YouTube Auntie YouTube because of the knowledge that the uncle and the aunt bring. So that speaks to your generation, I guess.
Yeah.
All right, great. So now let's talk about your podcast. Tell us the name of your podcast and how the idea of creating a podcast in this day and age came to you.
Yeah, so our podcast is called No Cap, the podcast. So my best friend Scott Held, who's currently a student at the University of British Columbia in Vancouver, and I, over quarantine, started to talk about different creative ideas or projects that we wanted to work on. And something which we immediately kind of connected with was like the concept of potentially starting a podcast, because we both really enjoy listening to podcasts in our free time from, for example, like one of my favorite NBA players has started a podcast. So with that, it kind of created a natural segue into wanting to try to create our own. So when we were deciding on our podcast, our concept about it was supposed to be not centered around us two, but we wanted to bring in guests from different walks of life to give them a platform to share their stories and ambitions, as well as some difficulties that they may have faced in their life. And so we were kind of looking at that, and especially in these difficult times where we're adjusting to this new normal, we wanted to build something positive that is able to connect people. And we thought a podcast could be the perfect thing to do so. So our podcast is called No Cap, which is basically like a millennial term or saying, which
What does
means
it
like,
mean? Please enlighten me. I've been
yeah.
wondering what that means.
So it means like you're not lying and what you're saying is true. So like, for example, it's kind of more slang, but when I'm with my friends, you say, oh, no cap. But we kind of wanted to tie that into what we think our podcast is supposed to represent, which is basically like an unfiltered, realistic portrayal of life through the guests we have on, while also kind of sharing myself and Scott being two students that are hosting it. And yeah,
Mm.
about 2 weeks ago, we officially launched our first episode, which was really rewarding. And yeah, we're just excited to keep on building from it and learning more from the different guests we get to bring on.
Yeah. So let's come back to the term no cap. So what
Yeah.
I'm hearing you say is that in your world, no cap means telling the truth, unfiltered. Is that right?
Yeah. So basically, it means like what you're saying is like you're telling the truth. There's no lie to it, and
Yeah,
that basically whatever you're saying, like you're being honest about it, pretty much.
right. So using it in real life, what would you say using the term no cap?
So like for example, if you're talking to your friend and you're saying you're discussing about something and then you state something like, hey, this or that, and then you say like, oh yeah, no cap, like yeah, that's completely true. Like I'm not even lying about this. It's more of like like indirect term. I use more slang, I guess, but we kind of wanted to shift that word because it's used so much like in my generation, and kind of use that connotation for our podcast to give it like an overarching theme, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. No, thank you for schooling me on today's language. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Jesus, I feel like I am 100 years old. Right. So, the intention, if I understand, for your talk show, now talking from host to host, your intention, your intended outcome is really to have your guests, I imagine guests from your generation, to share
Mhm.
topics around, what pertains to your life. And I've watched the first one you did, and I know you just had an episode. And you really interviewed one of your colleagues about certain issues. Could you tell us a little bit more about the kind of interviews you've already carried out and what were the key learnings or takeaway messages that you want people to know about?
Yeah, so our first episode, we had one of my good friends called Nelson Boichi, who's from London but plays basketball at Davidson College University. And what was really interesting about that is that he kind of talked about his journey from England, how he got there, to becoming a player in the US. And yeah, it was just really fun getting to learn about his experiences and just sharing it with us and the listeners about some of the difficulties he may have had, because what he talked about was there's also a certain stigma around international players sometimes. For example, in basketball, being soft and things like that. And he just talked about how he felt about that and how he overcame those issues. Yeah.
Mhm. Okay. And you just released another podcast?
hmm Yeah. So we released episode 2 yesterday with Sylvester Mensa, who's a Ghanaian student at the University of British Columbia as well, who kind of on his own began to create music events and hosting them, and then created his own platform called the Other Side Club. So he talked about that, how that was for him to kind of create his own event from scratch.
Mhm. That's good. All right. So I'm seeing we already have some comments and even more people joining. So greetings to all of you who just joined. There's a question from Robert. Hi, Robert. Robert is saying, I'm interested to know TikTok business model as an inspirational to other creative youth. And what are the strategies to be creative and make reviews at the same time on TikTok?
Yeah, I mean, from a business standpoint, TikTok has a massive potential. I saw recently, I think there are over 800 million, I think, users right now, and it's been downloaded over 2 billion times. And I guess with that just comes finding what's so important about it is finding your own niche. And so interesting at the same time, because what TikTok does is kind of they use the algorithm and filter it based on what you like. So your For You page is basically things you like, and they filter that around that. So I guess finding your niche and then just relating that with the content you want to create, I'd
Yeah.
say.
Yeah, and I like what you just said about the algorithm. Someone who actually was on our show in September, who's in the fintech industry in New York, her name is Neha. So I certainly she deserves to receive credit for getting me on TikTok. So she was saying, Robert, that she predicts that. Companies that will have presence on TikTok will be more likely to be visible out there because of the algorithms, because of how TikTok is created for your content to be more visible. So more even than, the likes of Instagram and other platforms, although Instagram is also quite good in that sense. So I don't know whether that's probably the reasons for the controversies online, but we're not going to go into that now. So Robert, let us know if you've been answered, or if you have any questions that you wish to ask Leke. But Leke, on that note, on TikTok, you said we shared a few statistics about the numbers. Some of your videos, since I've been doing some, let's call it research on you, statistical research, not snooping as an auntie. I saw that your videos are not less than 400K viewers. I mean, for any business out there, it's good. It's really good visibility to have more than almost 500,000 viewers watch your products, watch what you do. So, is there any tip that you have for viewers specifically on TikTok or any other social media platform?
I guess, well, for myself, when I did TikTok, now I don't really try to look at it as a business model. I just did it for fun, and I guess that resonated with people. But yeah, for a business standpoint now, you see it a lot as well. I see it on my page where businesses are targeting influencers on TikTok that have a high following and have them promote their brand or their content on their or their products on the videos that are seen on TikTok. So yeah, it's, I think, a really great model to use now, especially if you're trying to target the younger generation.
Absolutely, yeah. And I've seen, for example, it was in a US show, news on CBS, where they were featuring a young student from Harvard University who's using TikTok as a platform for creating hope, teaching very short 1 minute tutorial. And to your point, Leke, there's a lot of advertisement that is being put in there for influencers to be visible, to create more content there. So there's a lot I'm sure you can do. Maybe you should think about it, like as
Yeah.
a business model. Since your shows are not less than 500K, so maybe we'll talk. Let's talk offline.
Yeah, we might be able to work out a brand deal or something.
Yes, that's right. You could be my manager or something. I'm kidding. So, Robert, let us know if you've got any questions, or I'm inviting anyone watching us now to ask a comment or share anything. Now, back to the youth finding their voice on social media. So I know that this whole um, lockdowns, quarantine have in a way been a plus, because you found your voice. You found that you can tell a story no cap, and that is that is something that create content. It helps others. Could you tell us a little bit more about what you see other young people do that we may be interested to hear more about?
Yeah, so I just think a lot of younger people are now using social media to enhance their platform and some of the projects they're working on. So whether that be something creative, as for example, what I'm doing with my friend, a podcast, to a brand that they're even starting. I think social media allows you to start a business from scratch and share it to the world without, having to maybe go down the historical path, so to say, where before social media. So that's just been really amazing to watch. And yeah, just people speaking out as well and just sharing their voice and just using tools to share with one another.
Mm-hmm. That's really cool. Thank you. Um, what else? Any other thoughts? Any other thoughts?
Yeah, so I guess something I want to say as well, though, is that although like platforms, so for example, social media like Instagram or TikTok, have the ability for younger people to have their voices heard. I think it's important that people not only use social media, but that they use what they've learned from social media for it to be reflected into the real world. So whether, for example, as a student or as a younger kid that may be signing up to join an after school club, or an organization or whatever it may be, I think, what you're passionate about, I think it's important to be sure that you translate the social and the positive impact from social media into the real world to help create the change that we want to see basically for a better tomorrow.
Hmm. I am just a speechless, proud auntie right now to just say these things. It's, it's amazing. Yeah. So please continue. Tell us a little bit more about your recommendations for the youth, because I know that this will be circulated to a number of people. What else would you like not only the youth to know, but also, people my age and older to know about the best use of social media to create that transformation?
I think with social media, we each have a responsibility because you're putting yourself out there. So you get to dictate how you want the world to see you. But I think it's important to not only be authentic, but to also have a purpose with what you share with other people. So for example, with myself, I always just try to have something that might not might resonate to one person. You never know. Whatever you might put out there might impact somebody or might be able to help them with something that they're going through. So just to always think about what you're posting and hopefully use it to better someone or someone else's life or help someone in a certain way.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And what you're just saying is really resonating with the very reason why, this talk show was created. No, I've shared this story before, but I'm sure not everyone has heard this. When the lockdowns, were completely, total, and they were all over the world back in March. I was so devastated to only see negativity on our phones, on our screens, pretty much everywhere. It was catastrophe, it was doom and gloom, pandemic, it was almost the end of the world. And I said to myself, there's got to be something I can do with the little means that I have in my control during pandemic. And slowly and gradually, that's how this talk show came about. Still young, still, low key, but the impact that it has created to be that voice of hope, of positivity, is amazing. So the feedback we're getting is so good because people are craving for good news. They're
Mhm.
craving to hear that it's not just about the number of deaths, number of, by deaths, I mean COVID tested, healed, died. There is a lot more things out there. And I understand that, it's been really devastating. But when we create our own content, it brings hope and it helps others also find their own voice. Because once you know yourself, once you find your voice, it is impossible for someone else not to emulate what you bring to the table, because as human beings we reflect each other. And I agree with you, Leke, that even since March lockdowns and quarantines, even here in Rwanda, I have seen more and more people creating more content, and so many talk shows are coming to be. And that's so
Mhm.
beautiful to see
Yeah.
that people are taking ownership of, what they want to see. Have you observed a similar thing at your end as well?
Yeah, I've seen so many of my friends just work on hobbies that they may have lost because of school and like kind of refound passion and love for it and just try out new different things, new projects. I've seen so many great things just come about even in through these hard and negative times. And that's just been really inspiring. And as well as seeing, for example, what you've been doing with your show, I think gives hope to a lot of people. And it's just something great to have.
Indeed, indeed. Wonderful. So we've got a little less than 15 minutes left. So just you've got a few minutes to ask questions or comment or share your views on how you've seen either the youth or people utilize social media to spread hope and positivity. So you've got a few minutes to go while I ask Leke to share a little bit more about what's next. So now the show is live. You have a few guests lined up, some now down and some are coming up. So what can we expect from No Cap?
I guess just more good content. I guess we just try to be authentic, reflect who we are, myself and my co-host Scott Held, just two university students, going through the everyday struggles of life, but that are just inquisitive as well, and just want to learn more from different people about their path to hopefully be able to emulate that and use that as advice for ourselves, going into the future.
Indeed, indeed. Okay, no, that's really awesome. And I look forward to watching more of that. And who knows, maybe I might be showing up on your show one day.
No, we definitely would love to have you on. Yeah, for sure.
Wonderful. That's good. Now, um, let me ask, with Christmas coming up, there's a lot of things that many people want to accomplish before the year end. People are thinking about becoming a better person, a better version as they're heading into the new year. So the resolutions and all of those things. Do you have any thought around what you believe that people should put out there to help people improve and better as they watch shows like ours online?
Um, I mean, I guess I just say to help maybe what if you see something that resonates with you, something positive, that sparks something in yourself and that you think, oh, other people might have or might be able to use for themselves to get motivated, especially now going into 2021, where hopefully, it's a better year for everyone. I think that would just be amazing.
Absolutely. That's really cool. No, thank you for sharing your perspective. So I'm not seeing any more comments. Um, what I'm going to do now is to thank you. Thank you for what you've just shared. And I'm going to give you an opportunity to share your final remarks with us before we complete and wrap up with the show. Do you have any final remarks to share, Leke?
I just want to say thank you so much for having me on here today as a guest. It was truly an honor. It was amazing. And, I definitely love to keep watching what you're doing with your Conversa coach. And it's really inspiration, I have to say. Thank you so much.
And also thank you for being a guest and being the very first family member on the show. It's just been a joy, and I must confess that I was managing myself not to be this cute auntie on the show. Because I am so proud of you. You really are for our family the firstborn in the next generation from our siblings, from your mom, your uncle and aunt, and myself. So we really are proud of the work you're doing and the amazing young man that you have become. So seeing you create such positive content in the world, makes me the proudest auntie in the world. In this
Thank
hour,
you.
I claim that. So I just really wanted to publicly acknowledge you on behalf of the family to say that we're so proud of you. And I can't wait to see where this journey is taking you with a no cap. I know that you will carry that flag with integrity. And I know you were born for something great. We all know that about you, right? You know that as well.
Thank you. Thank you. I mean, hopefully.
So thank you. And I would definitely reach out to find out a little bit more about your secret on TikTok. So we might be able to get a deal somehow with a family discount.
Sounds good. Yeah.
Right. So as we wrap up, Just wanted to also thank the audience for watching us tonight from all over the world, especially from Europe. I know that we have friends and you have friends watching us from Switzerland and Germany. So we also acknowledge you, especially on this show. And thank everyone for your contribution. If you wish to know more about this topic or you wish to reach out to Leke, Leke is going to share with us how people can connect. So how can our audience get to know a little bit more about what you do? How can they connect?
Yeah, so for my podcast, No Cap, the podcast, we do an audio and video version of every episode. So we're on YouTube for the visual version, and you can just find us under No Cap in spaces and then dash the podcast. And then the same, we're pretty much on most major streaming platforms, so Google Podcasts, Spotify, etc. You can find us if you search No Cap dash the podcast. And yeah, otherwise also on Instagram under Ade Karera.
Ade Karera, that's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing with the audience how they can connect with you and your podcast. So I'm going to wrap up. And before we do, two things I would like to share with you. Number one, if you have not subscribed to this channel, please hit that button on the bottom right now and make sure that you receive new content. And the second thing is our guests for next Sunday. Next Sunday, I will be hosting Mrs. Delphine Traoré. She is based in Côte d'Ivoire, in Abidjan, West Africa. Delphine is a COO and executive board member at Allianz Insurance Company, so Allianz Global. And also formerly the CEO of Allianz Africa in South Africa. So Delphine is going to talk to us on Sunday about how to thrive through adversity. She is a powerful business leader that has been going through a number of adversity, and in the midst of it all, she came through strong and even stronger, both in the business world, in her family, and also as an individual. So I'm inviting you to tune in as we will be hosting Delphine live from Abidjan and Kigali next week, Sunday at 6 p.m. Kigali time, 4 p.m. GMT, and 11 a.m. in Eastern time in North America. So any questions that you might have, feel free to connect with me or my team at Cora Coaching Group. Our website is cora-coaching.com, and you can also connect with me on LinkedIn under Mireille Ineza Karera, or on this YouTube where you get all of the contacts. Until then, I'm saying goodbye to everyone. Stay safe, and remember, you hold the key to the content that you are producing. You are your own executive producer of this lifetime that you live in. In this coming week, can I challenge each one of you to produce great content, like we heard from this young man who reverse mentored me on how to create content and spread the word out there. We have a choice, ladies and gentlemen. We can broadcast good news or something else. What will be your choice in the coming week? Make a good choice. Broadcast positive news and dare to do what you know you were supposed to do. So those are my challenging commendations to all of you as we complete. So I'm seeing someone, Jeanette, trying to message, but the message has been retracted, Jeanette. So I will pick up your message offline. Until then, see you next Sunday. Stay safe and stay hopeful and lifted up. Bye-bye.